crafty friends, welcome back to my channel. So today we're playing with something a bit interesting. This was pre-recorded as a live video for the Paper Issues Friends Facebook page. So if you are not a member of the Paper Issues Facebook page, first of all, you are missing wonderful live videos. The entire design team goes on and does live videos twice a month. And it's so different scrapbooking live than it is recording a video because you get to talk to the people who are making and you get to ask questions, and I like to let people help me design my layout. So if you aren't a member of the Paper Issues Facebook page, I highly recommend you do that. But this was recorded there, so I'm showing you the sketch that I used for the layout because I was playing with that sketch, and I decided to do a lot of mixed media on this page because I just got my hands on the Vicky Bouton's Foundations paper. And I thought it'd be fun to really put that paper through its paces. So what I'm doing is making a ombre background because what I'm documenting is a picture of Noah at his first swimming lesson. My nephew is 6 months old, and my sister has already signed him up for swimming lessons. She is one of those parents. And Noah's swimming lesson was at 7:30 on a Saturday morning, so you can imagine how enthused I was about having to wake up at 7:30 on a Saturday morning to go. First of all, I had to wake up at 5:30 to be at her house at 6:45 so that we could go to his swimming lesson at 7:30. So you can imagine how enthused I was about having to wake up that early. But I would do anything for my nephew. So I am documenting that photo of Noah, and I thought it'd be fun to make a background that was going to mimic being underwater, which is why I used that. So the blue I used was called Deep Sea, and it's from Target. It's from their paint line, and then I added some blacks and then some whites to make an ombre. And now what I'm using is some matte gel medium to stick down some vellum. This is mint green vellum that I had in my stash. And I punched out varying size circles to mimic the look of bubbles. So again, I just do a bunch of mixed media on the background, which is why I'm sharing it here to give you guys some ideas for adding mixed media to your pages. So I really wanted this page to look like it was underwater. So I added that gray ombre paint, the gray, green, blue color, the color that it becomes, ombre paint, and then I add those mint green bubbles to the background. And you see, because they're mint and they're vellum, because vellum's transparent, they kind of melt into that dark blue so that they actually do look like bubbles. And the vellum crinkles a little bit with the matte gel medium applied to the top of it, which I think is a really, really fun effect. I really like the way that came out. So after I apply the matte gel, I eventually hit it with my heat tool. You see my hands moving a lot because, again, I'm talking to the people as I'm scrapbooking. So, yeah, nothing. I'm just hitting it with my heat tool and drying that matte gel so that I can keep going with building the layer and the texture on this page. And I find the easiest way to apply matte gel is with a flat paintbrush. So any flat paintbrush will work. And now I grabbed a 12 by 12 stencil, and now I'm adding modeling paste because that stencil, I thought it looked like underwater, and I thought it looked like bubbles, and I thought it'd be fun to just add another bit of texture to this background. So my tips for using modeling paste, someone once said it's like buttering bread. So you just want to take a palette knife and go in one. I find that going in one direction helps you get the best results. So if you start varying directions and going back and forth, I think it tends to make the modeling paste skip. But if you pick one direction and just go in that one direction, I think the modeling paste applies beautifully. It also depends on which paste you're using. I prefer a lighter texture modeling paste because it dries faster, and I think it applies easier. They make light textures and heavy textures, and it depends on what mediums you're working with, but I find that I have the best success with a lighter texture. So I am just randomly applying this modeling paste to my background over the vellum and the paint. And I do it in 3 sections just because, I like that 3. And in the bottom, you see I kind of pull it off onto the white cardstock just to continue that texture a little bit. A lot of this gets covered up. So if you see me lift up the stencil and you're like, oh my goodness, what's going on? A lot of this gets covered up, which is why I pulled that paint and the modeling paste as far down as I did, because I knew that once I started embellishing, a lot of it was going to get it covered up with the photo cluster and everything else that I build, because if you've watched me scrapbook before, you know I like huge photo clusters and layers and paper mats, and I knew I was scrapping 2 photos, so I knew it was going to take up a bunch of space. So after I pull off the modeling paste, I'm going to hit it with my heat tool one more time just to make sure that it's dry throughout. And then I'm going to work on adding more texture to this background, because if you thought it had enough, you clearly... I honestly, I don't know. Now that I'm rewatching this, I'm like, it could have stopped here, but then I added more, which I'm okay with that. So now I grabbed some Vicky Bouton iridescent glaze, and I wanted to add some shimmer. Sorry for the shaky cam. With the live setup, my phone is attached to my desk so that I can broadcast live. So if I shake my desk, it shakes the camera a little bit. Hope that's not too bad for you guys. But I wanted to add some shimmer to the background. Again, I'm working to like replicate the look of being underwater. That's like my prime objective for this layout. So I thought by adding that iridescent glaze both over the paint to kind of lighten it up a little bit, and over the modeling paste to add some shimmer and shine, it adds some dimension, and I think it really goes to add to the effect. Now, I love the way that modeling paste looked over that ombre paint, like with the dark paint in the corner going lighter as it goes across the page, and then you still see the peak of those vellum bubbles underneath. Like I love the texture in this background so much. That is my favorite thing about mixed media, is that you can really just keep adding layers and layers and layers. And there's definitely more stuff. So now I'm picking it up so you can see, like, look at that shine. There's definitely some more stuff that I could have done to this layout. Like I had some distress sprays on my desk because I thought about adding texture and adding splatters. I eventually decided not to, but I did think about adding splatters to the background. And I don't know if I just decided not to, or if I honestly just forgot that that was something I wanted to do. But I eventually, scrap adding the splatters, and I leave it with the white. So now I'm creating my photo mats. If you've seen me do this before, you know I love a huge photo mat. And so the collections I'm using the Pebbles. There's a Pebbles little boy line and an Echo Park little boy line. I unfortunately do not have a lot of little boy supplies because Noah's the first little boy in my life that I'm scrapbooking. And by the time I was hunting for collections to scrapbook Noah with, I couldn't find anything that I really, really liked. So I found like bits and pieces of some older lines, and that's what I was able to get my hands on. So the Pebbles line is, I think, like 2 years old. And since it's an older line, I wasn't able to get much of it. I got the ephemera, some puffy stickers, and the cardstock stickers, but I wasn't able to find any papers from that line, which makes me sad because the 6x6 papers are like my go-to embellishment. So the papers that I'm using are from an Echo Park baby boy line, and you see I have my 2 photos of Noah. We stood him up by the pool, and honestly, Noah did so well, you guys. Noah's practically a fish. Like at one point they dunked, like the teachers were instructing the parents to dunk the baby's head underwater, and I could literally see the wheels in my sister's head turning as they instructed her like what she was supposed to be doing. And they play this game, you say Humpty Dumpty, and when Humpty Dumpty had a great fall, you dunk the babies under the water and you pick them up and you like blow on their face. And so I'm watching them, like I'm watching my sister as the instructor's telling them what to do, and she was really game and she did it. She dunked Noah under the water, and when his head came up, the face he made at her, he was literally looking at her like, why are you doing this to me right now? And it was the funniest thing, but he was such a good sport. He laughed the whole lesson. Like I expected him to start crying, but he laughed the whole lesson. He did really, really well. And this is an 8-week lesson for the babies, and then you like steadily move up to like the class season is called Aquatots, and then you like steadily move up to, I guess, like the toddlers. Noah can't even walk yet. He's already taking swimming lessons. It's wild. So there's the cardstock stickers from the Pebbles line, and I ended up pulling off a bunch of them and putting them on my hand. And the reason I did that was to hit them with my powder tool. Now, if you've watched me scrapbook before, you've seen this powder tool. It is my go-to supply. And since, like I said, I wasn't able to get a bunch of stuff from the Pebbles line, I'm really working on making what I did get stretch. So I took off a bunch of those cardstock stickers that I thought I would use, and I hit them all with my powder tool to take the stickiness off of them. And now I'm working on embellishing my layout. So if you've watched me scrapbook before, you know that I like to include things at different heights and different layers. So I'm tucking some of the ephemera in between the layers of my photo. So I have, I think, like 4 or 5 photo mats, and I'm tucking like some of the whales and the fish and that like, what is the steering thing on a boat called? Whatever the steering thing on a boat is called, I'm tucking that behind the photo mat so that they're all at different heights and different levels in the layout. That is my favorite thing to do. I think it adds a lot of interest and it keeps the layout, like it helps with the flow and the dynamic nature of the page. I like doing that so much. And the other thing I like doing is including things on top of the photo and behind the photo. So now I'm going back to the ephemera pack, not to the ephemera pack, to the cardstock stickers, and trying to find out if there's anything else I want to add. I'm trying to work on the colors that are already in my background. So I have that grayish blue color, and then I eventually add some mint green and some of that like sandy craft color that's in the Pebbles line. Trying to avoid adding any new colors because Noah's wearing red. And I didn't want to print the photos in black and white. So I was worried that adding any new colors would start to clash. So like the Echo Park line had like oranges and yellows, and that's why I didn't use it, because I was worried that with all the blue and then the red in his shirt, adding any new colors would just be a bit too much. It would just eventually overwhelm the page. So now I pulled out the die cut pack, and I'm working on adding, again, more embellishments to my page. So I tuck some more things behind the photo. I put some things on top of the photo. That octopus is my favorite embellishment on this whole page. I love that octopus so much. And then I'm adding some leaves, some stems. Again, just building, adding height and texture and dimension to this page. And so I eventually built a similar cluster on the right side of the photo because this page felt very left side heavy. And so I tried to balance it out by building a cluster on the left side. So I use a whale, and then I eventually add a few more sentiments, and I put things up on foam. You'll see me do this a lot later in the layout, but I added a ton of foam to this layout because I was obsessed with that dimension and that height, and any way that I could get it, like I went for it. So I added a bunch of foam to this page. So now I pretty much have stuck everything down, and I made my giant photo complex so I can pick things up and move it. That is my favorite way to scrapbook if I can. I like to stick everything to my photo and then pick it up and figure out where I want it on the page. I find that that's a little bit more successful for me than sticking things down directly to the background, because then if you don't like it, you're kind of stuck with it and you can't move it. So I made that huge photo cluster, and then I can kind of pick it up and figure out how low I want it on the page, or if I want it, like how much of that background I want to show. So I could bring it up a little bit higher, put it down a little lower. So I made a cluster to go in the top right corner of the page. I like diagonal flow across my layout. So wherever my photo cluster is, I tend to do a smaller cluster in the opposite corner. So I made a cluster going for the top right of the layout, and you see I added a ton of craft foam behind it so that whole cluster is popped up off the page. This is just craft foam that I got from Michael's, you guys. Any craft foam that you get in the kids section will do this job. I know people have had adhesive craft foam where it's sticky on both sides. This is just plain old foam sheets that you can buy in any dollar store. Like I said, I got mine at Michael's, and you do have to use adhesive on it, but I find that either score tape will work or a wet glue will work when it comes to sticking the foam down. And then you can just trim them up into different sizes, cut exactly the size you need, and then stick it down. And I do the same thing behind my big photo. I take that. Again, I don't mind that it's yellow because you're not going to see it. So the color of the foam doesn't really matter. But I just created a huge, like you just see that there's a lot of foam back there. But I wanted to make sure that there was foam behind everything on the page so that it stuck down really well, and so that everything was at the same height and you don't like lose things. Because I find that if everything's not at the same height, then sometimes some of the embellishments start to like tilt in the album and things start getting warped and bent. So now that my photo cluster is stuck down and my cluster in the top right is stuck down, all that's left to do is add my title and add a few more embellishments. So I went ahead and I picked out my, never mind, I had a few more die cuts because there weren't enough on this page. Like, there weren't enough embellishments on this page before, so of course I had to add a few more. But I used the that silver holographic stickers that you see on the table right now. Those are from the Pebbles line, and that is what I used to pick out my title. I was stuck between Little Dude or Hello Cutie, and I asked the lovely scrappy friends that were watching what my title should be, and they picked Little Dude, so I went with that. And I went ahead and added some glue behind my title, because if you're sticking anything down to mixed media, typically the adhesive that comes on these stickers isn't going to be good enough. Like, it's not going to hold up in the long run. So you're better off adding some sort of wet adhesive to the back of anything that you're sticking down. And now that I have that shiny silver, I go ahead and I add a few of those silver foam stars across the page. This is to repeat the color of that foam sticker that my title is, and also to repeat the texture, because now we have that texture of foam that's not anywhere else on the page. And so I treat these foam stars the same way you would treat enamel dots. Like, I sprinkled them around the page. Also, now I'm not introducing, I was going to add enamel dots, but I was really worried about introducing other colors. But by using those foam stickers, now I'm not introducing any other colors because there is the same color as my title. And then I put down 2 of those foam stickers at a time. So I went ahead and I grabbed a cardstock star from the cardstock stickers and used that to complete my trio of stickers across the page. And then I go ahead and I add one more by the top right cluster. And then after that, the only other thing I do is add some puffy stickers to complete the page. So I hope you enjoyed watching, you guys. I left this process fairly long because there was a lot of mixed media involved, and I figured if I trimmed any of it out, it would kind of be hard to catch up on to see where I was. So sorry if this video was a little long, but I think the mixed media part was maybe the most impactful part of the video, and I wanted to make sure you saw everything I did there. So thank you so much for watching, you guys. I hope you enjoyed this. If you aren't in the Paper Issues Facebook group, please consider heading over and joining, because the live videos are so much fun. And I get all my supplies from Paper Issues. It's a great scrapbook store. And if you use my code Tashi, you get 20% off in the store. And who doesn't want to save some money? So that's all I have for you today, guys. Please consider giving this video a thumbs up. And please comment and subscribe if you aren't already. It would be so wonderful if you came back to spend some time with me. And I hope, again, you enjoyed this video and that you enjoy the rest of your day and that you go make something beautiful today. So till next time, keep it crafty and have the best day, friends. Bye!